Seattle Planning Commission. As we begin our meeting, we respectfully acknowledge that our meeting today is taking place on occupied Coast Salish land, and we pay respect to the Coast Salish elders, past and present, and extend that respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. To acknowledge this land is to recognize the history of physical and cultural genocide and settler colonialism, which continues to displace Indigenous people today. It is also to recognize that these lands, waters, and their significance for the resilient and wise peoples who continue to thrive in this region despite the consequences of displacement and broken treaties. Those who hold settler privilege in the city must work towards supporting the Coast Salish people and all Indigenous people using the various forms of wealth and privilege that we reap due to it. My name is Matt Hutchins. I use he, him pronouns, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Seattle Planning Commission, along with Zio Alvarez. Starting off with some announcements for members of the public and visitors. We are happy to make all commission meetings open to the public. Please note that the Planning Commission does not hold public hearings since the commission is an advisory body. We provide recommendations to elected leaders who are then charged with making the decisions. We encourage individuals and organizations to provide their comments appropriately to elected officials. This meeting is a hybrid meeting with some individuals participating remotely while others are in person in the Boards and Commissions room at Seattle City Hall. I would like to invite a commissioner to choose one of our Color Brave space norms that they feel is particularly relevant to today's agenda and speak to it. Do I have any volunteers?
I can go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think today as we're looking at the draft plan for our regional centers, thinking about practice examining racially biased systems is important, especially considering the built environment and our current planning practices are deeply rooted in white supremacy and other forms of oppression. And so as we examine it and talk about our comments and review the plan, thinking about how can we improve, give suggestions that are really rooted in examining these systems and ensuring that what we suggest is for a Seattle that, embraces all of our diverse communities.
Thank you, Julia. Let's see if there are any amendments and modifications, or unless there are any amendments or modifications, I suggest that we agree to all these norms. Okay, let's start, let's see, with a round of introductions. I've already introduced myself, but if you can state your name, pronouns, neighborhood, and day job. Let's get started. I think first person that I see is, let's see, I see Andy.
Yeah, hi, Andy Dannenberg, teacher at the University of Washington in Public Health and Urban Planning, use he, him, live in Northeast Seattle. Margaret?
Hi, Margaret Zealous. I use she, her pronouns. I live in the Fremont area, and my day job is that I am a law student at UW Law with an interest in land use. Caleb?
Morning. My name is Caleb Twilde, he, him pronouns. I live in Beacon Hill. I'm an educator at Rainier Scholars. Pass it to Julia.
Morning, everyone. Julia Jane Fields. I use she, her pronouns. I live in the Ballard neighborhood, and in my day job, I'm a community planner focused on equity and engagement. And I will pass it to Rose.
Morning, I'm Rose Lucella Woodson, pronouns they, them. I'm based in the Licton Springs Northgate fuzzy neighborhood line. And I am a wetland biologist and permitting specialist for my day job. I will pass to Cecilia.
Hi, Good morning. I'm Cecilia. I use she, her pronouns. I live in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. And for my day job, I work in ADA compliance for King County. And I will pass it to Dylan.
Hey all, Dylan Glosecki. I use he, him pronouns. I live in Central District and I work with Perkins Eastman as an architect and urban designer, focusing on multifamily, residential, and urban infrastructure projects. I'm gonna lean into staff a little bit as to who might be, who hasn't gone yet.
How about Theo?
Morning, all. Theo Alvarez. I use she, they pronouns. I live in White Center, Highland Park, and I am an associate at Element. I think Michaela's in the boards and commissions room.
She is. Okay, I wasn't following. Hi, hello, good morning, Michaela Daffern, she, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill and I work in affordable housing policy and planning at King County. Great. I think that wraps up commissioners. Let's move to staff. Robin.
Robin McGonigal. I live on Vashon Island. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm staff of the commission. Olivia.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Olivia Baker, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also staff to the commission. John?
Morning, everybody. I'm John Hoy. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm also staff to the planning commission.
And I will wrap us up. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining on this still dark morning. My name is Vanessa Murdoch. I use she, her pronouns, and I too am staff to the commission. I'll turn it back to Matt.
Great, thank you. On the agenda today, we have one item, which is an overview from commission staff on the policies in the draft downtown sub-area plan. But before we get to that, we need to approve the minutes from our January 8th, 2026 meeting. So first of all, can I get a motion to approve minutes?
Rose motions.
Thank you, Rose. Do I have a second?
Second. Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any changes or amendments? Okay, I don't hear any. In that case, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the January 8th, 2026 minutes, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 I think Matt froze.
Oh, wait. I think I dropped out there. I'm back. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Matt, I'm going to jump in because I hear you're having technical issues. And just say that the minutes of the January 8th Seattle Planning Commission meeting have been approved. And I will just note that our upcoming commission meetings, we have our next Housing and Neighborhoods Committee, which is scheduled for Thursday, February 5th. From 7:30 to 9 a.m. And our committee meetings are held uniquely on the Teams platform, so they're not hybrid. Our next full commission meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 12th from 3 to 5:30 in the afternoon. And that meeting will be a hybrid with some commissioners participating in person at City Hall and others online. And I'm just going to roll into my announcements. As noted before, this is a hybrid meeting, and during the meeting, there will be opportunities for questions and comments from commissioners. Please remember to use the chat function of MS Teams to join the discussion queue. And I'd like to remind commissioners to not use the chat function for substantive discussion, but rather to be recognized to speak. The reason for that is because if we do have members of the public calling in, they won't have access to the chat. Whereas we do have members of the public joining us on Teams, and they do have access to the chat, but those calling in would not. So as Matt noted, we are providing additional options to provide public comment. You can either join us here in the Boards and Commissions meeting room in City Hall. You can write to me via email before the meeting, or you can offer comment via the Teams platform. If offering comment during the meeting via MS Teams, please raise your hand in the Teams meeting to be recognized to speak. And I don't see that we have any members of the public dialing in. So we just have, we do have 2 individuals joining via Teams. So I'll give them a minute or a couple seconds to raise your hand if you care to offer public comment. And I'm not seeing any raised hands. So Matt, we can skip the blurb about public comment and move right on time into our one agenda item. Matt, are
Great.
you, oh, good, back.
Yeah. Yeah, just turn my audio off or my video off. That hopefully that'll help. Okay, so Seattle Planning staff are going to give their overview of the policies in the draft downtown sub-area plan. Before we get going with that, I'd like to invite commissioners to disclose any potential conflicts of interest on this topic and recuse themselves from the discussion if they have any financial, like direct financial interest in this project.
I don't believe we do have anybody. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Okay, good deal. All right. Okay, who's leading the staff portion here?
We are going to tag team it. So
all right,
I'm going to start and just providing some context, and then Olivia, John, and I are going to pass the baton amongst the 3 of us to provide you all with our initial issue identification around the policies. So we do have a new timeline, and this has been kind of shifting sands this week. So Tuesday afternoon, we learned that the comment period has been extended to February 15th. And as such, we have shifted the focus of today's meeting, rather than have today's meeting being the only time or the last time for commissioners to provide comment. Instead, we decided that we would, as staff, would focus on policies as we were asked to do by OPCD staff. And we are going to each provide you an overview of policies, particularly in themes 1, 2, and 5. That is downtown is home, make downtown safe, and welcoming and find our way. We have identified policies that we believe commissioners may have interest in commenting on. I would like to thank the 4 commissioners who provided comment to us. By the end of the day on Tuesday, we were able to incorporate those comments into our presentation. February 5th at the Housing and Neighborhoods Committee will be the last time for commissioners to add additional comments, again, focusing on the policies. And at our February 12th full commission meeting, staff will provide a brief recap of the final comments. We will not be composing a formal letter that would require 3 full commission meetings in order to develop, revise, and adopt. Instead, we will be composing notes based on our minutes from today's meeting and the meeting on January 8th, as well as the February 5th Housing and Neighborhoods Committee discussion, and passing those along to OPCD, the Office of Planning and Community Development, as well as posting those comments on our website. I will note that there are no planning commission meetings next week. So if commissioners have a little extra time, because we don't have any meetings to dig into the plan, There are tables at the end of the plan that really call out by theme the policies and actions, again, suggesting you focus on the policies as opposed to the actions. And with that, I will turn it over to Olivia. And as I said before, we're going to take turns, Olivia, John, and I, providing our feedback. We have approximately 10 minutes for each theme. Some themes will go longer, and other themes, we're going to do a light touch on themes 3 and 4. So today's meeting potentially will not have a lot of time for commissioner comments because we want to make sure we get through the full presentation. So if you can hold your questions and comments until the end. And again, I encourage commissioners to attend the February 5th Housing and Neighborhoods Committee discussion if you can. If you are not able to do that, but still have comments, please send them along to John, Olivia, and myself.
All right. So I will kick us off with the first theme. And so as Vanessa said, we're kind of focusing more on sort of downloading the plan for you all today. And we're going to cover pieces that we as staff think are relevant to you all based on past conversations or topics that we think are important for you to note. And so we're going to go by theme. Downtown is Home is the first major theme in the plan. At the start of each theme, they kind of give a little overview. So that's what this slide is representing. So the plan notes that downtown is home to a growing population, but the experiences and services and housing that are currently provided are not supportive of people at all stages of their lives. And so this theme focuses on trying to create a thriving, inclusive, and accessible urban core. So that's the vision that they have for this theme. They also included some metrics for each theme. I'm reading this as things that they are hoping to use to sort of measure success for each of these themes. So for Downtown is Home, those metrics include increasing childcare facilities, increasing housing units, increasing the number of first-time home buyers, decreasing the number of cost-burdened households, and increasing playgrounds downtown. So now we'll get into some of the more nitty-gritty sort of policy language. These are organized, each of the themes are organized by a series of goals, and then those goals have policies, and those policies have actions. As Vanessa said, we're focusing on the policy level mostly, but we do include the goals here as well. So for goal number 1, which is to add at least 13,500 new housing units across downtown, this goal aims to meet comp plan housing growth targets through simplifying and optimizing permitting regulations, adding flexibility for users in future development, and incentivizing office to residential conversions. And the policies also support increasing access to income restricted housing. There were 2 specific commissioner comments on this goal. One was related to DH 1.2, which is to prioritize residential development in the downtown core. Specifically, there's one action item under there that suggests allowing more housing types with a focus on family-friendly housing and affordability along 3rd Avenue. And the commissioner comment expressed concerns about 3rd Avenue's readiness for more housing at this time, especially more family housing. And there's some more comments on that in the general section for this, so we'll get into that a little bit more. There was also another comment related to DH 1.3, which suggests increasing flexibility in new commercial building designs in order to plan ahead for future conversions to residential use. And the comment was that if doing so, trying to increase flexibility, that they ensure the policy does not add to construction costs and further financially burden new construction. And I'll also note one other item with this goal. The whole goal centers around adding new housing downtown, but there's an economic feasibility study that's included with this plan, and it shows that development is currently infeasible for all studied housing types in the current market. So I think it's helpful to consider whether the policies in this plan are sufficient to create the change needed to make new housing feasible. The next goal under Downtown is Home, aims to protect low-income renters from displacement. It focuses on 50% area median income housing and below, while also ensuring adequate funding for low-income housing, and increasing homeownership opportunities. Goal number 3 is to evolve downtown neighborhoods to better meet the diverse needs of all residents and families. So this goal aims to increase access to key services for a wider variety of households in downtown neighborhoods by adding family-friendly housing and accessible housing, simplifying the development process to reduce housing costs, supporting different ownership models, expanding family-focused services, and incentivizing the inclusion of family-friendly amenities like childcare, public restrooms, and indoor play spaces. There was one specific comment from a commissioner here under this goal related to policy 3.2, which is that it's too vague in its language. This policy has no action items underneath it, so the suggestion was to include any action items or examples. And overall, commissioners felt that the policies in this section and under goal 3 fall short of the goal to truly evolve neighborhoods to meet resident needs. So I'll cover that a bit more on the next slide. So those are all the goals for Downtown is Home. There were some other high-level comments from commissioners about this theme in general. One of those was that the plan should consider explicitly connecting downtown housing growth to reducing regional commute distances. There was some more nuance to this thought, but I summarized here. So the goal is really to position downtown housing as a regional commute reduction strategy. And that strengthens the case for both residential growth and transportation investment. And the commissioner tied this to goal Downtown is Home number 1 and Find Our Way goal number 4, which John will talk about later. But really just looking at that connection between, for adding more housing downtown. Downtown is a hub for both housing and jobs, and it's a strategy for reducing overall regional commutes. There was another comment that many of the policies in this theme mentioned family and child-focused residential amenities, which are needed, but downtown also requires policy that encourages more general and all ages residential amenities, as well as access to everyday goods and services for people of all ages. And so that they asked, can those needed amenities be incentivized or added to existing vacant spaces? And in a similar vein, another commissioner noted that the plan omits important details about how to make downtown more livable. They asked, where are the nearest grocery stores? Where are the schools and recreational facilities and gyms? And does existing transit provide easy access to these amenities? And a fourth comment was that public safety is covered in the safe and welcoming theme, but it's also highly related to adding residents downtown. And if public safety is not addressed, developers will not be interested in projects along Third Ave specifically, but in the downtown core more generally, regardless of incentives. You'll note that the policies talk a lot about different types of incentives for encouraging housing, but this commenter is suggesting that those aren't sufficient to actually change the dynamic for housing development downtown. And that's it for this theme, and I'll pass it back over to Vanessa to go on to the next one.
Perfect. Thank you, Olivia. So the thing that I'm going to speak to is make downtown safe and welcoming. I will note that I put in the chat a link to the PDF of the plan, as well as the website on OPCD's web page site that has additional resources, as well as a link to the PDF of the plan. So the theme around make downtown safe and welcoming is to create downtown's culture and history and invest in public spaces that support diverse needs. The metrics are to increase outdoor space for youth, to increase accessibility, to increase park access, and to decrease violent crime. So the first goal in this theme is to make downtown safe for everyone, all hours of the day. The policies that I pulled out that I thought would be of interest to the commission to comment on, and that commissioners did comment on. The first of which is ensure outdoor spaces are accessible, well lit, comfortable, and clean. A commissioner noted that an important part of being comfortable in our outdoor spaces, especially downtown, is to increase bike safety in downtown areas. With the rise of e-bikes and scooters on the roads and or in sidewalks protected and separate from cars and pedestrians, those facilities seem like they should be considered as well. And for anybody walking downtown that's had an e-scooter come up out of the blue behind you, you'll understand that can make people feel a little uncomfortable. There was also a note by a commissioner to clarify that this goal includes an effort to disrupt and discourage antisocial behavior, which is common along the sidewalk near 12th and Jackson. And the commissioner noted that it is important to name the specific issue in order to address it. The second policy is to create a comfortable and convenient transit experience for everyone, including while waiting for buses and making transfers. And a commissioner noted that this policy should be expanded to include commitments to seamless transfers between ferry, rail, bus, bike, and walking modes. The third policy is to maintain public spaces through dedicated resources and continued partnerships with local communities and businesses to reduce the burden of public space maintenance on historically underinvested communities. I noted that this the commission would likely be appreciative of this, of having a more equitable distribution of needed investment so that we're not only looking at downtown neighborhoods, recognizing that the downtown is really all of Seattle's downtown. And so all of Seattle should participate in investing and making it a safe and welcoming place all hours of the day. The fourth policy is to enhance community policing services and alternative response programs. A commissioner noted that it's important to enable all Seattle residents to help those in need and be part of the solution. And the commissioner recommended public education regarding the care team and how to connect with the care team, and even noted, suggested, is there an opportunity for crowdsourcing the identification of incidents that would benefit from care team support and enable quick and easy communication between public and the care team in a similar manner as the Find It, Fix It program. Next slide, please. So the second goal of this theme is to make downtown welcoming and inclusive, treating all with respect and dignity. And the policies I identified that I thought would be of interest to the commission to comment on: partner with Indigenous communities to reflect their histories and futures in downtown land use, signage, and wayfinding systems. I think perhaps the commission would want to suggest stronger language, such as commit to partnering with and listening to, as opposed to just partnering. The second goal is plan for additional primary and urgent healthcare facilities to provide local support to downtown residents. A commissioner noted this is really important, and to reduce building use restrictions to enable more services and job opportunities downtown in order to support increasing residents downtown in ways simply beyond just adding housing, and referencing the 15-minute neighborhood concept that housing is great, but you need more than just housing in order to have a livable neighborhood or community. The third goal is to wrap downtown in a green embrace. I called out two policies here: improve underpass connections within the Chinatown International District. And a commissioner commented that developing more programming below I-5 overpass to activate this space, similar to the CID block party and the Fremont Bridge Winter Market, with activities such as food trucks, farmers markets, clothing, good swaps, concerts, etc., and to add environmental design elements linked to CPTED principles. CPTED, I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's basically crime prevention through environmental design. Thank you, Michaela. And then the fourth policy, or number 4, the 4 policy is further adapt land use regulations to support the activation of ground floors, storefronts, and landscaping and loading adjacent to the waterfront along Alaska Way. There was a suggestion to expand this policy to include commitments to seamless transfers between ferry, rail, bus, bike, and walking modes. That was referenced earlier. And to discourage service uses for buildings fronting Alaskan Way and provide flexibility in how businesses meet city regulations relating to waste, recycle, pickup, loading, etc., in order to encourage more pedestrian-oriented uses and activation along Alaska Way. Next goal is to increase parks, plazas, and green spaces as downtown grows. The first policy under that goal is to expand access to park space in areas with gaps and in communities that were disproportionately affected by past planning actions. I think the commission appreciates the intent to repair past harms and neglect. The fourth policy under this goal is to seek opportunities to repurpose or activate the right-of-way for recreational purposes, recreational opportunities. This is definitely in line with the Planning Commission's repurpose the right-of-way issue brief that we prepared before or as the major update to the comp plan was beginning a couple of years ago. And to reallocate space on streets to put people first. And the third suggestion from a commissioner was to replace seek opportunities with pursue or aggressively pursue. The fifth policy is continue supporting community-led conversations and planning efforts to shape open spaces in ways that reflect local needs with a focus on ecological resilience and access to fresh, healthy food. The suggestion here is to strengthen the verb and as opposed to continue supporting, commit to supporting. And then I missed popping up to the first, sorry, popping up to the first goal, first policy, expand access to park space. Development, a commissioner noted that development often focused in areas with much past investment, many of which have appropriate access to parks, find ways for development in areas already well served by parks and open space to financially support creation of parks and open space in areas of the city that lack these amenities based on racial equity toolkit priorities. On to the fifth and sixth goals in this theme. Provide a variety of recreational experiences throughout the year for downtown residents and visitors, reveal, celebrate, and protect downtown's history and culture. The policy that I thought would be of interest to the commission on this, complete planned improvements to downtown public spaces. Yes, that's a great policy, and to include wayfinding, so to connect the improvements to those downtown places in a way so that people can make their way. And with that, I will turn it either back to Olivia or John.
I think I've got this next one, and then John will handle the last two. So the next theme is make use of every square foot. And the theme mostly focuses on economic development. So while it has a lot of great policies that you may want to dig into if that's something you're interested in, we took a lighter touch with this section. And so I'll just cover policies that relate to topics the commission has discussed in the past and stay pretty high level. This theme talks about adding vibrancy and activity downtown. It talks about how that's what draws people to downtown. But in the post-pandemic context, the city needs new ways to effectively reuse space downtown. And they aim to transform downtown into a thriving urban center that creates economic opportunity for all. So some of the metrics that they're looking at are to increase the number of jobs, increase small businesses, and decrease vacant commercial and office space. And looking at the first goal, goal number one focuses on encouraging the adaptation of underused spaces downtown in order to support needed uses. Doing so by leveraging underutilized publicly owned space and encouraging new uses on privately owned vacant lots. Goal number 2 aims to preserve unique commercial nodes, particularly areas at risk of displacement, while activating public spaces and protecting small and legacy businesses. Looking at goal number 3. Goal 3 focuses on ensuring adequate supply.
Clippy back upstairs. It's right now on my nightstand.
Sorry, Julie, I think you're unmuted. I'll just go ahead and mute you. Oh, you did, great. Let me get back to the slide. Okay, goal number 3. Goal 3 focuses on ensuring an adequate supply of commercial space for a variety of businesses, including small and medium-sized businesses. They use strategies such as encouraging flexible ground floor layouts, providing technical assistance to businesses, and supporting pop-ups and creative uses of space through pilot programs. Goal number 4 is to enhance the reliability and quality of downtown facilities and utilities to support future development. And I called out this one in particular because it includes a policy related to right-sizing downtown parking, which aligns with past recommendations from the commission. So I feel like they were channeling some of the comments we've heard from Deanna, especially in this policy. And there's some actions in there that are pretty closely aligned to past comments from the commission. Goal number 5 focuses on making economic growth equitable through preventing displacement of existing businesses and commercial hubs, while also leveraging growth to create community benefits for vulnerable and highly impacted communities. And goal number 6 centers on creating creative industries downtown, centers on supporting creative industries downtown, and includes policies related to increasing events and activities in public spaces, expanding opportunities for public art, and retaining and expanding access to affordable retail spaces for cultural arts use. There was a specific commissioner comment on policy SF 6.3, which does make it easier to participate in the downtown creative economy. And their comment was that the city needs more robust solutions for keeping artists and cultural spaces embedded downtown. And there's more on that on the next slide. So these are some higher level comments that didn't relate necessarily to specific policies or were just kind of overarching. The first was that there are policies under this broader goal of attracting and growing creative industries, including SF 6.1, that place a really strong emphasis on cultural consumption. But what's missing is a parallel focus on cultural production and long-term sustainability of culture and the arts. The comment suggests that the plan does not include clear actions for requirements or incentives for artist studios, fabrication and maker spaces, or long-term stewardship by cultural producers. It suggests that artists are primarily positioned as contributors to public space rather than as workers who need affordable, stable places to operate. Other than that one policy that I called out on the last page. And so without dedicated production space, artists may be commissioned temporarily to support downtown activation, but they'll be displaced permanently in the long run. And that creates a system where culture becomes something that is displayed downtown rather than sustained. And a second comment on this theme related specifically to policies 1.1 and 3.5 those policies focus on the reuse of office space and aligning city regulations with new retail trends and pilot programs. And these could both be strengthened by actions or maybe a new policy to explicitly position downtown as a test bed for regional economic transitions. Without that framing, many of the policies read as sort of defensive responses to downtown's challenges. And the commissioner suggests framing this as opportunities for testing pilot programs that can shift the frame as intentional leadership tools. And I think by leadership, they mean leading the way for the region and how downtown recovers. And that is it for that theme. And I'll pass over to John.
Great. Thanks, Olivia. So the fourth theme in the plan is steward our home for the next 7 generations. And it's generally the environmental and climate section. The theme here is identified by foster long-term stewardship of downtown's urban ecology and natural environment. And the metrics that are identified in the draft plan are to increase access to the waterfront, increase street trees, and decrease fossil fuels. I will just note, as you go deeper into the plan and as you see new themes, you will start to see a little bit of overlap between the themes with some of the contents, and that's a good thing. It's all woven together in a really nice way, but you will see a little bit of themes or policies that relate back to other policies. So here in this theme, the first goal is to connect people to nature through views, experiences, and physical connections with a few policies of interest. The first is to collaborate with representatives of tribal nations, urban Indian communities, and local nonprofits to deepen storytelling and wayfinding that honor the cultural and ecological significance of water. Another policy is to facilitate waterfront access for Indigenous communities and honor treaty rights and cultural practices. And a third policy is to communicate the value of water resources, urban habitat, tree canopy, and ecological systems that uniquely reinforce downtown's slopes, green spaces, and waterfront conditions. The next goal under this theme is to care for downtown's water, land, and natural resources. And with several policies that I've identified, the first is to manage stormwater responsibly by cleaning and minimizing runoff into Puget Sound and reducing the strain on downtown's combined sewer overflow facilities. Second policy is to ensure new development is sustainable and responsive to downtown's waterfront environment. Another policy is to protect and expand downtown's tree canopy. And the fourth is to support policies that protect Puget Sound as an essential resource for the food systems, cultures, and economies of tribal nations. The next goal under this theme is to reduce downtown's reliance on fossil fuels with several policies that I've identified. The first, explore and expand local power generation / district energy approaches and employ a low pollution neighborhood model. There was a commissioner comment on this policy that this policy should be strengthened to reflect the longstanding conversation around low pollution neighborhoods, recognizing that downtown is the most viable place to implement this model at scale. Moving from exploration to clearer commitments around local power generation, district energy, and low pollution neighborhood implementation would better reflect downtown's potential as a climate demonstration district. The next policy is to achieve and maintain fully electrified public sector vehicle and vessel fleets. Another policy is to expand sustainable building practices, including the promotion of adaptive reuse. And lastly, to ensure renovated and new construction buildings achieve high environmental and emissions standards. I think this is the last goal under this section. The goal is to ensure downtown is resilient to natural disasters and climate change, something that the commission has been briefed on. First policy is to address Chinatown International District and Pioneer Square's high concentration of unreinforced masonry buildings in need of seismic retrofits. The second policy is to continue supporting resilient infrastructure and facilities that provide assistance across downtown neighborhoods before, during, and after emergencies and severe weather events. And lastly, to protect and expand access to healthy food cultivation, harvesting, and sharing. I believe that's it for the the environmental theme. The last theme is labeled as Find Our Way and is generally a transportation and mobility access related theme, with the theme identified as downtown is easily navigable for children, older adults, and people with disabilities through thoughtful amenities like seating, hill climb assists, and shade. Major nodes serve as dynamic, inclusive hubs that spark broader transformation across downtown. And there are 4 metrics identified: increase walk, bike, transit mode share, decrease greenhouse gas emissions from vehicle trips, decrease traffic-related injuries, and decrease drive mode share. There are several goals under this theme. The first is rethink and reallocate space on streets to put people first. There's a little bit of overlap with this goal that you heard earlier in the presentation. Several policies under this goal pursue street transformations to create more space for walking, rolling, biking, transit, and lingering or gathering. And there were a few commission comments on this. One was to support policies that reallocate space on streets to put people first. And there was another commissioner comment stating they were curious to explore and discuss the role of increased bike safety in downtown access. I believe this comment was included earlier in the presentation, also related to a different policy. With the rise of e-bikes and scooters on the roads or on sidewalks, protected and separate from cars and pedestrian facilities, seem like they should be considered as well. Suggested protection should encompass more than just paint and include physical separation. The next policy is to advance a mix of seasonal, weekend, and in some cases permanent restrictions for personal vehicle traffic to make areas of downtown car-free or car-light. Another policy is when providing maintenance to update the street to reflect right-of-way allocation needs that support adjacent land uses and planned transportation networks. And lastly, to update design standards to better support people, streets, and public spaces that enhance community health and improve safety. The next goal under this theme is make traveling through downtown a safe and comfortable experience. A few policies of interest here: prioritize pedestrian safety and visibility at crossings throughout downtown, and apply strategies to reduce collisions and vehicle speeding in pedestrian-rich downtown neighborhoods. The third goal is to celebrate downtown's unique cultures and histories, especially its indigenous population, throughout its transportation system and public spaces. A few policies here of interest: reflect indigenous art, culture, language, and gathering spaces throughout downtown streets and public spaces, especially on the shoreline, to honor native cultures and our deep relationship with the water, and to use transportation and public space investments to help repair past and current harms to BIPOC groups in concert with Seattle's transportation equity strategy. The next goal is create a sustainable and resilient downtown transportation system. Several policies here of interest: 1, deliver projects and operate the transportation system to advance our climate goals. 2, make frequent service corridors the backbone of downtown surface transit network. There was a comment on this one asking, are there existing public transit systems that connect to grocery stores, schools, etc.? This comment actually was mentioned earlier also. And would the commute be reasonable and support living in downtown, or would transit connected necessities like grocery stores and schools just encourage people to live closer to South Lake Union or the Central District? The next policy: provide programmatic support to promote clean, sustainable travel options. Explore innovative strategies to foster neighborhood vitality and improve community health, and advance multimodal access to connected, people-centered places that reflect community visions and support equitable, vibrant growth. I think this is the last goal is to design downtown streets to support innovation and a thriving local economy with a few policy statements. Pair local land uses with dynamic transportation needs, support economic vitality through the movement of goods and services on our city streets, and plan for and support dedicated spaces that accommodate freight and logistics activities. We those last ones relate to the urban freight mobility presentation that we had just last week at the Land Use and Transportation Committee. One more. The last goal is to use streets to help people navigate and find their way through a legible downtown. This is kind of wayfinding and mobility around downtown. The policy of celebrate downtown Seattle's unique geography. There was a commissioner comment on this, that improving hill climb wayfinding and expanding hill climb opportunities about that is that hill climbs are a game changer for navigating downtown. But between Metro and SDOT, hill climb maps are either outdated or not available online. And a second policy to recommending design and maintain downtown streets to be safe and accessible for people of all ages and abilities.
Great. So this is our last slide. You'll all be relieved to hear. We did well on time. I know that was a lot to throw at you all. So I'm just going to speak to some general comments from commissioners that didn't fit tidily under a specific policy or theme. Commissioner commented that overall the Downtown Regional Center plan lays out a vision that they felt was missing in the comp plan, with policy recommendations that are innovative, include diverse communities, and plan for complete communities for all ages. Especially excited to see accessibility and people with disabilities included, beginning with recommendations for meeting the unhoused community's needs with alternative response programs. And then the last comment was, when goals are identified as near term, the associated actions should reflect a higher level of readiness. And the commissioner suggested a comb through, not that we would do, but that OPCD would do, comb through the policies and actions to double check the feasibility of near-term actions. And this will be important to improve the credibility and effectiveness of the plan overall. So we have 30 minutes, a little over 30 minutes left in our meeting today. Again, just want to recap what our approach has been thus far, and that is to really focus on the policies, less so the actions. The policies are divided into the 5 themes that John, Olivia, and I each provided a very high level zippy commentary on. I suggest we take the remaining time for commissioners to ask questions that staff here may or may not be able to answer, as we didn't develop the plan, but we can follow up with staff that did develop the plan, as well as make any comments, initial comments that you have after hearing today's presentation. Again, our intent is to focus on the policies and to not only offer recommendations for how those policies might be strengthened, but also to note those policies that the commission appreciates. And I'm always reminded of Michaela's expression, the compliment sandwich. So in our notes, we will note not only what we think that could be improved. My suggestion would be that we would note not only what can be improved and strengthened in the policies, but appreciation of the policies that commissions are on board for. So I will turn that back to Matt and ask commissioners to put their name in the chat. And I see a couple already. Do you have access to the chat, Matt?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah, my technical problems are I think are resolved here. So let's see. So Michaela has a question and comment.
I mean, Vanessa did not tee me up well for this. I have not read the plan yet, so I'm not in a position to provide an overarching kind of really considered complement and identification of what is working really well in the plan. Mine are a little bit more weedy as I seek to, so I'm going to commit to actually reading the plan and being ready for the next Housing and Neighborhoods Committee meeting with my comments. My first question is, how does this sub-area plan treat and consider a strategy for meeting the needs of folks who are unhoused and in need of emergency housing? Downtown is where a lot of our facilities are for folks who seek shelter at night, who seek kind of day services during the day. And I heard a lot about creating a downtown that's safe and welcoming for all. But I think, what does that mean for folks who are struggling to find a place to sleep every night? Seattle has an obligation to plan for and accommodate its share of emergency housing needs. We don't talk a lot about that as a commission here. It's not just permanent housing. There's an extremely large number of beds that Seattle's supposedly planning for and accommodating through capacity in its comprehensive plan. But there's an opportunity here to match that identified capacity with like a human services kind of strategy for folks. And so for the staff who read the plan, did you see that in there?
I did, and as you mentioned, Michaela, the Planning Commission hasn't really weighed in a lot on that, so I didn't highlight those policies, but there are, and I invite Olivia and John to add in as well, but there are specific policies in the safe and welcoming theme.
Okay.
Enhanced community policing services and alternative response programs, provide programs and services for youth experiencing barriers to housing, employment, and education, support downtown parks with wraparound response teams that provide a range of service and skill sets. So there are a number of focus a coordinated care planning process to serve populations who most predictably enter homelessness. Looking for others, provide resources and investments to connect people experiencing homelessness to appropriate services and assistance. So in that safe and welcoming theme, there are a number of policies that are specifically explicit in coming up in suggesting a strategy for dealing with our unhoused neighbors. Continue to advocate for the investment of state funds to train more mental health workers and to increase capacity for emergency and ongoing mental health treatment. So I will add that after this meeting, sometime today, we will send out the PowerPoint that that John, Olivia, and I were working on up till 7 o'clock this morning. So it's not the cleanest and most consistent in terms of design, but it has the information. We'll send it out as a PowerPoint because we have notes in the notes section that I want to make sure you all have access to. And then I'll also point to specific parts in the plan that that we have found helpful. Reading the full 108 pages is great if you've got the time. If you don't, I can suggest the areas to focus in on.
Okay, because I was struck by Olivia's comment that none of the housing types proposed or studied in the economic analysis are economically feasible, which means we're not actually getting any redevelopment anytime soon, which makes me wonder, should this really be part of our, 20-year vision for downtown? And is this actually a realistic plan? And is the more likely outcome going to be that we're going to continue to have a lot of folks who don't have a place to sleep at night, who need a place to go with supportive services, so they can achieve housing and then remain stably housed with the supports they need. And then my comment was, I saw some of the comments from the commissioners saying they would like to see stronger policy language. And I actually think suggestions like commit to exploring is no stronger than the weak policy language. And so kind of one of the things when you're reviewing policy language is to be, and you want to see it stronger. You don't want to see words like explore or consider or commit to exploring. Those are all an indication that that is as far as the city thinks they can reasonably take the effort. And so a couple of examples that I noticed as we were going through the presentation, which was policy SW 4.4 under make downtown safe and welcoming. There's a clause at the start of the policy statement, and it was like commit to exploring, and it was about repurposing the right of way. And just start the policy statement with repurpose, because if that is what we want to see, we don't want just continued consideration of it, because if that is what the policy says, that is what success looks like to the city departments. And the part of this plan is to push the city towards a bolder vision. And that starts with firmer policy language. So I might provide comment next week, specific, suggestions next week on places where I feel like the policy language should move from a consideration to an actual commitment. Thanks, Michaela.
Thanks, Michaela. Andy.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I liked what you presented. I have not read the whole thing, but so yeah, it sounds good to give a positive spin back to PCD on how they've done. The one area I'm a little concerned about, one of the early slides talked about more housing, more family-friendly housing, more child care centers, more playgrounds, all of which means more children, and almost nothing about more schools. And yes, I am aware, because I've been told several times, that it's the school board or whoever who decides where schools are, but some kind of a comment about coordinating or encouraging or whatever with the school board to make sure there are enough schools if you do hope that there are more children there.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, Dylan.
Yeah, I have a handful of thoughts and comments, but I'll just kind of bring up one overall kind of question back to fellow commissioners and staff as we're going through this. And Michaela touched on this. Obviously, our current economic climate is very challenging for developing housing. This is a 20-year plan, so trying to get my head around how to balance where we're at with where I don't know what to call it, where we hope we're going to be. And what sort of considerations make sense, what sort of goals make sense to address a current economic climate that hopefully we'll be able to work through in the next 3, 5, 10 years. How much that should influence kind of goals in this plan. Similarly, to the economic climate, we still have a series of challenging kind of conditions in terms of kind of the in 3rd Avenue and 12th and Jackson. Again, these are specific areas that have challenges now, that have historically had challenges as well. And I do feel like while there are some directed policies that work to address some of those challenges, it just seems like successfully addressing that sort of public safety aspect and also offering assistance to folks that are unhoused or that need various access to services in terms of mental health and other issues, precede being able to do a lot of these other goals. And I'm just not seeing like a distinct, clear linkage between like the public safety aspect and making an environment where we can develop, housing along 3rd. An environment where when folks are in Seattle for the World Cup in 6 months, 5 months, and they're taking transit, and their arrival and experience of downtown is taking transit, taking some of the buses in, taking light rail in, and walking up to 3rd Ave what are they going to see? What is that experience? Um, and I'm not seeing those sort of immediate goals and vision highlighted, emphasized in this plan. And so I guess the question really is, how much of this should be focused on kind of the immediate, the now, the next year or two, versus this being really focused on the future, and we'll resolve kind of these short-term goals. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm asking? How much should be focused on the short term versus the 20-year vision?
I think so. Does anyone want to
I-
respond?
Michaela? I absolutely, like, it's all part of the strategy, right? There's near-term actions that you have to take in order to achieve that long-term vision. And if part of what you want to do is to create a demand and a market for a variety of folks of different income levels, ages, and abilities to live downtown, to want to live downtown, it starts with kind of what is that place that makes downtown a space that people, that's desirable, where people want to put down roots and build community and be part of that environment 24/7. So I agree with you, Dylan. Totally, it totally makes sense. And I look forward to actually looking at the actions in the plan, because perhaps they do talk about what do they put, let me ask this to staff, do they put any sort of commitment around what year, like implementation timeline?
They've got, well,
There's an implementation table at the end, which I'd recommend looking at because it's a
Okay.
good matrix for all of the goals, policies, and actions. So just sort of a great summary. And they do indicate near term, I think midterm and long term.
Okay.
But yeah, it doesn't have a specific date. And to one commissioner's comment at our exec meeting,
Yeah.
there's no table that tells you kind of what near term means versus long term. You know, they haven't laid that out on any sort of time frame, but there is a general sense of timing included in the implementation table.
and I'll just, I'm jumping the queue here just to respond, channeling Nick. The third bullet on the screen that you see, when goals are identified as near term, the associated action should reflect a higher level of readiness. And his point was exactly like, if putting housing, family housing on Third Avenue is a near-term goal, there are a lot of things that need to happen. I think it's a near-term goal. There are a lot of things that need to happen before that. So that is definitely a theme that I'm hearing from a variety of commissioners. Sorry to jump the queue there, Matt.
No worries. Yeah. Let's see. I guess like a couple things that really stand out to me. You know, this is really this is a statement that downtown is essentially in transition. You know, from post-COVID and work from home, the nature of work has changed, and work jobs have been the core of downtown. Now, this plan is moving towards it being a high-rise residential neighborhood. And at the same time, on one hand, any new buildings are local in the short term, according to their
Matt,
other hand, downtown's population has okay. Is all this just not working? Is the audio better there?
The audio is better. The last thing we heard clearly was that this plan is moving towards a high-rise residential neighborhood, and then you were choppy after that.
Okay. So on one hand, it's the exhibits are showing that most building types are infeasible under the current conditions. But on the other hand, it's also showing that the population in downtown has exploded. It's in one of the appendices, it says that the population downtown 2010 was 27,000, and today it's 47,000. So in 15 years, it's almost doubled. And so to think that we have 36,000 units of housing there now, and they look to expand that by, 13 to 15,000. That doesn't seem as improbable, but I'm not exactly sure how these magical buildings get built if they can't if they can't get financed. There's also this really kind of disconnect, or not necessarily disconnect, let's say discontinuity in the demographics, that a lot of current residents, like, they fit into two camps. One is the folks that have really high income, and folks that have really low income or no income. There isn't a lot in between, and there's so that need for emergency housing is huge. Like, I would have loved one of the templates of projects that they're looking to see if are feasible is, what is it going to take to actually build more emergency housing downtown? That's a huge. It contributes to all the public safety goals, and community vibrancy goals that they're talking about, but we really haven't, like, down and figured out how that can. And so we kind of aspirational study that we're going to build, high rises, and when the conditions are right, those will take care of themselves. The harder thing is providing housing low and how does this community hold together, diametrically opposed, at least on the economic scale, populations coexisting. So I guess my thought is, like, I like this to me isn't like how we deal with the world. Although it'd be great to see, the current actions are a good pattern for how we're going to solve the long-term issues. But I just see this doc. It really needs to embrace how downtown is. It has to evolve, and really kind of press. So I'm looking for even more of a clearly stated that downtown is not going to look like downtown in 20 years is not going to look anything like in physically or in terms of demographics what it looks like today. So I don't know. That's a lot, and I'm sorry if a lot of that cut out.
I think we got 75% of it. We got the gist.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh
We'll
God.
follow
I'm
up
sorry.
with you. No, it's
more like
not-
90.
Okay, 90.
Yeah.
John got 90, I
Okay.
got 75.
Okay. Andy.
Yeah, one of the larger level thought is OPCD has its own domain, but there's a number of things mentioned, everything from climate change, emergency, parks, schools, transit, and so forth. Is there a way to put a more global statement out, coordinate with the other departments that are responsible for those other issues? All of them affect the city. OPCD doesn't run them, and just something that encourages that coordination.
If looking through the plan, if you look through the actions, there is more specificity in coordinating with existing plans and city departments. So
Okay.
there is a recognition that this plan is coordinating with a lot of other existing plans that are coming out of other departments and offices.
Okay, good. Just so it's in there, because I think that does become very important because all these do overlap so many departments. Thank you.
And maybe I could provide a additional kind of context for that. A sub-area plan is, while it's written by OPCD, the intent is that it is a plan to guide all actions by city departments. And so no department can act inconsistent with the sub-area plan or the comprehensive plan. And so this actually is the doers, the implementers of the plan itself, of the sub-area plan itself, are all of the departments. OPCD just happens to be the one responsible for running the process to develop it and do all of the analysis. So there's just
do those other departments get a chance to look at it while it's in draft and comment on it or not?
I mean, I can't say that for certain, but that's yeah. The typical practice is it's a multi-departmental kind of endeavor, and there's a lot of consultation that happens to make sure that it's, which is a lot of why, because you'll have like a planner be like, well, we should repurpose the right of way, and then SDOT will say, I don't really think that's feasible. We have a lot more experience trying to execute that, and so then they provide an edit back that says, consider repurposing the right of way or something like that. And so that's a lot of how the sausage gets made. But it's really a useful tool for setting policy direction for that's durable beyond one mayor's term or just, and it doesn't just set policy direction for one department. So thanks.
Dylan.
Yeah, just kind of responding to Matt's points, I thought were really good, just regarding the sort of dichotomy of a lot of folks with a lot compared to folks with a little that live downtown or exist downtown currently, and it does just it feels like there's more effort put towards those that have a lot towards providing you know, new residential towers, that sort of thing. And there is definitely mention from a public safety point of view of kind of working on some of the street conditions. But I think Matt, you know, I hear Matt with his point about it would be, I would like to see more in there about how to, you know, provide the housing and services for the other set of the population too, and a lot of energy put towards working with you know, the whole striation. I keep getting the impression that there are aspects of this plan that come across as tone deaf because we're not directly addressing some of our current big issues. And so I'm trying to figure out how to put that into writing in a way that OPCD can receive it. But yeah, I appreciate Matt's comments about that because I think they're true. I would appreciate seeing more emphasis on you know, addressing like housing and having that emergency shelter goals incorporated into this so we can yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thanks, Dylan.
We have 8 minutes. Are there other weigh in that okay. Come on. Otherwise, otherwise,
No, Matt, you're still cutting out.
okay.
Can I share my screen for a quick second? Are we allowed to do that?
Sure.
Just to make a.
I'll speak for Matt, because Matt, you're still cutting out. If you want to put your comments or what you want to say in the chat, I can read it out.
I made this point, I guess at the last meeting, when OPCD was presenting. But again, if you look at like the executive summary, you know, they get in and kind of do a breakdown of their big ideas and what they're looking at for downtown in general. And they list out a lot of ideas they already have. But this is, again, just kind of gets to this feeling like there's an elephant in the room. And they list all these strategies for downtown, all these specific projects that they want to see, enhancing the waterfront, working with Pike Pines for retail corridor, talking about this transit gateway, you know, the work with King County and the various parcels they have and kind of towards the south into downtown.
but there's just not like a big, there's individual policies, but there's not like a big picture sort of identification of just this gap, this vibrancy gap that we have between Pike Pine and Pioneer Square, and how they're specifically doing that or focusing a whole array of comments or of goals on that area. So it just there are gaps here, and yeah, I find it frustrating that it is not specifically being addressed, kind of this sort of dead zone that we have. I'll try to put that into some sort of reasonable comment as well.
Can you add a screenshot to the meeting minutes? Just be like here.
Yes.
This area.
Dylan, do you mind giving me just the page number that was?
Yeah. It's in the executive summary, page 12.
Thank you. I'll include that in the email that I send to you all later on today with suggestions of where to focus your attention and efforts as you review the plan.
Okay. Any last comments?
I do have one about arts and cultural space. Having done a lot of work in Capitol Hill during the time when they launched the Capitol Hill Arts District, and they themselves were sort of trying to triage the like rapid loss of artists from the neighborhood. In that community, there was a lot of performing arts spaces that were leaving the neighborhood just because they simply couldn't afford the rents any longer. And so there was a kind of a maker and producer focus, like people need production space to be able to make their art. And there's also this aspect of making sure that we have spaces for those whose art of choice is performance. We have some major performance centers downtown, and we have some continuing music venues and kind of our symphony space and whatnot, and some theater space as well. And so if we're providing that comment, maybe rounding it out a little bit to reflect the fact that like artists follow cheap rents, and they will eventually leave a community because they're not able, because it doesn't make financial sense for them to stay. And I'd say Capitol Hill suffered as a result of it when Velocity Dance just really was struggling to find a place. They surveyed their dancers, and most of the folks who were coming in didn't even live in the city anymore because they couldn't afford it. And so I don't know, and I think this is probably more of a comment for like our performing arts spaces and then down in Pioneer Square. But learning from the Capitol Hill Arts District, learning from strategies we've tried in the past that weren't successful is and if you're not prioritizing the costs for the artists themselves or the institutions that they're connected to and by which they express themselves, you're missing out on the opportunity to I agree with the commenter about recentering it around the artists themselves. Sorry, that's not very well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. 2 minutes. Any last comment? Okay. With that, I'd like to thank, first of all, staff for an amazing distillation of the downtown plan, and thank everyone for their comments. Get any further comments to them ASAP, and we'll see some of you at the Housing and Neighborhoods meeting on Thursday. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks all.
Everyone.